Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I want to talk for a bit about Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Milwaukee Bucks. They're coming off a really disappointing end to their season where they were the 1 seed, they look like a championship favorite. I even made a video calling them by far my favorite to win the championship. I picked them to win the finals going to the playoffs, and instead they lost in the first round in embarrassing fashion to the Miami Heat. There were a couple of reasons why it happened. Number one, Giannis did deal with injury in a couple of those games. If he was fully healthy throughout the full series, maybe they end up winning it, but also the Heat were just unstoppable offensively, and mainly, Jimmy Butler was a man on a mission. He was a guy that I don't think you could have put 4 defenders on him and managed to stop him with the way that he was hooping in those games. I mean, he hit like a falling backwards, landing on his back, alley-oop shot to send a game to overtime at one point. You just couldn't stop Jimmy Butler. So the Bucks end up losing in that first round series after having championship aspirations, and it led to a lot of big question marks going into this offseason, many of which they've managed to answer. The first question mark was the matter of coaching. After losing in the first round, do you keep Mike Budenholzer, your championship head coach, who led you there a couple of years ago? He had been a winning coach for the team. You can argue whether or not he was actually a good coach, but the team did win with Mike Budenholzer there and won a title at that. But of course, they do end up firing Mike Budenholzer and instead bringing in Adrian Griffin, bringing him over from the Toronto Raptors, where he had been an assistant for years and was pretty commonly a top contender for many head coaching spots. He finally gets a chance over here in Milwaukee, and now they've got a new guy manning this spot for the first time in a while. Then there were a couple more question marks, 2 big ones being Brook Lopez and Chris Middleton. Were you going to be able to bring one or both of them back? They were both really integral to both their success over this entire tenure with Giannis, and since they've both been here, but especially to when you won that championship. And this past year, Brook Lopez was a near defensive player of the year. Chris Middleton didn't play a ton, but he's shown his value season after season. You had to try and find a way to bring both of them back. Even if they end up declining, you had to at least secure their services going forward to try and continue building up this championship core, keep it stable for the moment. And Chris Middleton was pretty easy. Nobody really challenged the Bucks, it felt like, on Chris Middleton. I didn't hear many rumors about other teams offering him the money. So Milwaukee brings back Chris Middleton, the Robin to Giannis's Batman, and keeps that second option there. Additionally, they brought back Brook Lopez. He was a bit shakier. We didn't know if he was going to go to, say, the Houston Rockets, for example, who reportedly offered him a lot of money and thought they were getting commitment from him before he eventually instead went back to Milwaukee. It's not surprising. Milwaukee was the favorite to land both these guys, but it is, I'm sure, assuring to Bucks fans that they kept this championship core intact, bringing back their 2 key free agents. Overall, just on paper, I think it was a pretty successful offseason for the Bucks. I think they could still make some additions. I worry about certain spots on their roster, but there's a whole season to make some deals if things aren't working out. They've got the trade deadline, and I trust that they'll make moves if they need to. I expect the Bucks to be championship contenders. I know some people don't after their first round exit, but to me, I think that was something that won't happen again with the Bucks this upcoming season. I fully expect them to again be in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference and one of the top favorites to win the NBA Finals. But there still is one big question mark that is looming over the Bucks, and it's not one that will probably be even answered this offseason. In fact, it's probably going to keep looming over them over the next couple of years, and that's the status of Giannis Antetokounmpo. This was a question mark back in 2020 when, funnily enough, they also lost the Miami Heat in embarrassing fashion in the playoffs. That year, they were again the 1 seed. Giannis was the MVP in the depoy, but in the bubble, the Heat's shooting just destroyed them. Jimmy Butler was, again, a man on a mission, and they lost in the second round. And following that, there are all these questions with Giannis heading into his last year with the Bucks under that current contract. Is he going to leave? Is he going to stay in Milwaukee? Can he win in Milwaukee? Can he be the best player in a championship team? And the top candidate to take Giannis away from Milwaukee was, according to a lot of people, Miami, the very team that just beat them. So there's this big narrative rising up. It starts when the Bucks get eliminated. It builds as the Heat make it to the finals. It goes all the way into part of the summer until Giannis quiets it all down immediately by signing a contract extension with Milwaukee before the season even begins. He said, "This is where I want to be. I can win here, and we're going to make it happen." And they made it happen the following year. They won the NBA Finals. Giannis established himself in most people's eyes as the best player in the world. He had a dominant finals run, a crazy 50-piece to close out the NBA Finals. They did it. The Milwaukee Bucks were NBA champions. They silenced all of those doubters. A few years later, and Giannis and the Bucks are in an eerily similar situation. They're again coming off an embarrassing loss to the Heat in the playoffs, and Giannis's contract status is again a bit up in the air. It's not as dire as last time because now they've won a championship. Giannis has been here longer, and he's still got 2 years left as opposed to 1 year last time. He's under contract for this season and next one, with a player option the year following. Now, there's no way he takes that player option, because at that point on the open market, he can get like $80 million a year or something crazy like that. So there's no way he takes a one-year player option deal for much less, rather than securing the long-term contract that's going to be worth way more money. So pretty much guaranteed, he's got 2 years left under this contract at the moment, but he can always build on that with a contract extension. He's eligible for one from September 22nd in a few weeks to the start of the season, or after the season, he can sign one whenever. Now, Giannis did say in a recent interview with the New York Times, that is pretty much the basis for why I made this video, is he talked a little bit about this situation and said that it doesn't make financial sense for him to sign an extension between that September 22nd start of the season window, because he just won't make as much money, which he's absolutely right about. There's no reason for him to sign it then. But he elaborated a little bit and said, next year, next summer, it would make more sense for both parties. But even then, I don't know. This is something that a lot of people are talking about. This New York Times interview, Giannis talked a lot about his future with the Bucks, the uncertainty with it, and it makes it seem like it's not a guarantee that Giannis stays here for his entire career. He followed up by saying, the "even then I don't know" quote with, "I would not be the best version of myself if I don't know that everybody's on the same page. Everybody's going for a championship. Everybody's going to sacrifice time away from their family like I do. And if I don't feel that, I'm not signing." They asked him about the head coaching change from Mike Budenholzer to Adrian Griffin as well, and Giannis cited that as part of the reason why he's a bit unsure about an extension. He said, "You've got to see the dynamics, how the coach is going to be, how we're going to be together. At the end of the day, I feel like all my teammates know and the organization knows that I want to win a championship. As long as we're on the same page with that and you show me and we go together to win a championship, I'm all for it. The moment I feel like, oh yeah, we're trying to rebuild, we'll see what happens." Wrapping things up, Giannis says that he wants to be one of those lifers like a Kobe or a Dirk, but that if that's not what happens, it's just, what it is. He says there will never be hard feelings with the Milwaukee Bucks. "I believe that we've had 10 unbelievable years, and there's no doubt I gave everything for the city of Milwaukee. Everything. Every single night, even when I'm hurt, I am a Milwaukee Buck. I bleed green. I know this. This is my team, and it's going to be forever my team. I don't forget people that were there for me and allowed me to be great and to showcase who I am to the world and gave me a platform. But we have to win another one. At the end of the day, being a winner, it's over that goal. Winning a championship comes first. I don't want to be 20 years on the same team and don't win another championship." This interview and these quotes are why the NBA world is talking so much about Giannis at the moment, why everybody's speculating, is his time with the Bucks coming to an end soon? If you ask me as I read this article, I think it's pretty clear that Giannis does want to be a Milwaukee Buck. He's not dying to go ahead and go to Los Angeles or Miami or New York or something like that. He wants to play with the Bucks as long as possible. He wants to compete for championships there. If he had it his way, he would be a lifer. But his goal of winning championships, continuing to establish himself as one of the all-time greats, is his number one priority, and I think that makes a lot of sense. So it's up to the Bucks to prove to him that we can continue to build a contender around you. You don't have to go through a rebuild. You can keep winning championships here. But the problem is, it's going to be really hard for them to do that, and I don't even know how possible it is. If you take a look at this supporting cast, it's getting a lot older. The contracts are all wrapping up pretty soon, guys are injury prone, and the Bucks don't have a lot of assets to continuously get Giannis more help to convince him that, hey, Milwaukee is the spot where you need to be to win championships, as opposed to one of these other locations that are going to desperately try to sign you. First, let's talk about Giannis' co-star in Chris Middleton. He's been the Robin to his Batman for years now, a multi-time All-Star, the second option on that championship team. Chris has been great for Milwaukee. He earned this 3-year, $100 million contract that the Bucks just gave him. But it is a bit concerning when you take a look at how the past few years have gone for Middleton. The year prior to this past, he was great. He was an all-star, played 66 games, but when the playoffs roll around, he got hurt right at the start of them, potentially costing the Bucks a chance at repeating because he didn't play afterwards. And that's an injury that carried over into this past season, dealing with some setbacks that led to him only playing 33 games in 2023. He only started 19 of those, played just 24.3 minutes per game as well, as he continued to try and work his way back from injury to full strength. Now, when the playoffs did come around, Middleton was great. Again, even though they lost the Miami Heat, Middleton himself put up 23.8 points per game, averaged about 6.4 rebounds, 6.2 assists, shot great from the field and from three. Middleton was fantastic. Even though they lost, it was not his fault offensively. However, pretty soon following the Bucks' elimination, Middleton underwent arthroscopic surgery on his right knee, which is routine for a lot of players, and he's supposed to make a full recovery and be ready for training camp. But it does raise some concern. The fact that he needs routine surgeries like this, he hasn't played much over the past couple of years, How long is Middleton going to be able to stay healthy and play at the level that he's shown in the past? They need Middleton to be that all-star second option if they want to compete at the highest level for a championship. With him entering his age 32 season and consistently dealing with injuries, how long is that actually going to be the case? And even if he is still playing at that level, how consistently are we going to see him out there? Are these injury issues going to compound on themselves as he gets older and older? Then there's Brook Lopez, who was phenomenal this past year. Honestly, might have had the best year of his entire career. That might sound crazy, but when you take a look at the offensive impact, the defensive impact, being one of the top 3 finishers in DPOY, stepping up and playing 78 games after a lot of Bucks guys missed some time. Again, most notably Chris Middleton. He was incredible. A big reason why the Bucks stayed afloat and were one of the best teams in the NBA the entire season. I think he could have a similar year this upcoming season, and if he does, that's a huge win for the Bucks. But going into his age 36 year, pretty soon going to be entering his really late 30s, I don't know how much longer Brook has playing at this level. Plus, even though, again, he was really healthy this past year, he's dealt with a lot of injuries over his recent career, particularly with his back. So if those things pop up again, that could also lead to a rapid decline, or it could just keep him off the court entirely. Finally, there's the last member of the core for Jrue Holiday, who said back in April that he feels pretty good about retiring when his current contract wraps up. And he's only got this year and a player option next season that I assume he's going to consider part of that contract. And then he might hang things up. He might be done after 2025, which coincidentally is exactly when Giannis is probably going to hit free agency. It's also coincidentally when Chris Middleton will have a player option and could very well hit free agency, which is coincidentally when Brook Lopez will also be a free agent with no player option there. So there's a realistic chance that Giannis, Jrue, if he doesn't retire, Chris and Brook all hit free agency in the summer of 2025. That's terrifying for the Bucks. And if 1, 2, or even all 3 of those guys that are supposed to support Giannis leave, why would he stay? Sure, there's going to be a lot of money opened up, but are the Bucks going to be able to convince free agents to come in and join Giannis when now there's not much talent around him outside of just him? So the Bucks are not only fighting to keep Giannis to stay, but they're fighting to keep Jrue, Chris, Brook, and just hope that they don't regress and they can keep competing at a championship level. It's a critical upcoming 2 years for this franchise, some of the most important in the history of the team. And it's not just those guys, the group as a whole. Almost everybody's expiring right around that time. Bobby Portis will have a player option heading into the same offseason, which he's likely going to decline. Pat Connaughton has a player option then too. Grayson Allen will be a free agent this upcoming summer. You've got Malik Beasley, who's a free agent this upcoming summer. Jay Crowder, Robin Lopez. The only people fully under contract going into that 2025 summer is Marjon Beauchamp, assuming they pick up his team option. He's the only guy. So the Bucks are completely up in the air. Giannis, part of what he's talking about is the fact that he doesn't know what this team is going to look like in a couple of years. Why would he sign an extension when he has no idea who's actually going to be on the roster? Speaking of Marjon Beauchamp, he's also the only player on this roster, 25 and under, that I feel like I've seen enough of where I think, hey, maybe he becomes an impact player in the league. They've got some guys like Andre Jackson, Chris Livingston, who they recently brought in, Ty Washington, who they picked up on a 2-way deal. Maybe one of them becomes an impact player at some point, but we haven't seen much. So there's also really no concrete future ahead for the Bucks. If a bunch of those guys leave, it's not like, oh, okay, they have this next upcoming young core. It's super uncertain. And the icing on the cake with this whole thing is that the Bucks lack almost any assets to make significant upgrades. They have some first round picks, but they're really far away, and there's few of them. They gave up a ton to bring in Jrue Holiday, which was worth it. They won the championship. It made a lot of sense, but it severely limited their ability to make any significant moves. Next year, they have to swap picks with New Orleans. In 2025, it either goes to the New Orleans Pelicans or the New York Knicks. In 2026, the Pelicans have the right to swap. It goes straight up to the Pelicans in 2027. In 2028, 2029, 2030, they have their own first-round pick. But because of the Stepien rule, they can only trade a couple of those picks. So they only have a few available, no established young talent. How are they going to upgrade this roster around Giannis or make him feel like they can do so if some of those guys walk or if they start to decline? It's not like they have a billion first-round picks to just attach to Chris Middleton's contract and boom, you have another star next to Giannis. They can't do that. So I understand why Giannis is uncertain about this whole Bucks situation because everything about it is unconfirmed. We don't know if Jrue Holiday is going to retire. We don't know what Chris and Brook are going to look like as they continue to get up there in years. We don't know what the supporting cast is going to look like because they're all expiring. We don't know what the team is going to look like under a new head coach. Everything in Milwaukee is up in the air at the moment, and this is Giannis's legacy, his financial future, all in question. I get why he won't sign the extension, why he won't verbally commit to being here his entire career. It makes sense to keep his options open. I think there's a real chance that Giannis does end up leaving in 2025. Me personally, I'd love to see Giannis spend his whole career as a Buck. I think that's super cool that one of the best players of this generation could end up spending his whole time in the league with a small market team, especially in an era where player movement is all over the place and guys love to go to these bigger markets. There have been constant media pressure to push Giannis to bigger markets. If he stays in Milwaukee, I think that's a big win for small market teams. If I had to make a guess, I would say that he stays with the Bucks, but I'm very like 50-50, maybe 60-40 in favor of him staying as a Milwaukee Buck if I had to make a prediction on it, because there's also going to be a billion teams out there trying to take Giannis away. Say that he hasn't committed to the Bucks and it's iffy if he's going to resign. Maybe they consider dealing him around the deadline. If that becomes the case, there are going to be so many trade packages out there that I don't know if the Bucks are going to be able to turn it down. The Knicks are a team that has been rumored to be angling to try and pursue Giannis. They've got a bunch of first-round picks, some interesting young talent. Maybe that becomes an option for Milwaukee. Chicago, according to reports, has been angling to do so. I'm sure like the Lakers will throw their names in there, even though they just don't have the assets to outbid some of these other teams. I could see the Thunder, my favorite team, trying to get in the ring, throwing like 10 first-round picks out there, helping them recap some of their draft assets and a couple of young pieces that we have on the roster to try and bring Giannis in. Of course, this is also the era where star players typically say, this is where I want to go, and that's usually where they end up. So I don't know if Giannis maybe is like, okay, I want to go to New York or Chicago or something like that. He's talked about playing for Chicago in the past, so maybe something like that happens, and that's where he ends up. But just know that basically all 29 other NBA teams are going to be throwing some trade package out there to try and get Giannis. The Bucks are going to have their pick. I don't know if they will deal him because dealing a player like that is really disappointing. It's probably smart to get value back if he's potentially going to leave, but I would imagine they probably just wait out his contract and just do whatever they can to try and re-sign him when his free agency starts. So I guess we'll see what ends up happening, but for now, it's all speculation. It's a possibility that Giannis leaves the Bucks sooner than later. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this Giannis situation right now. Again, it's all just speculation. Maybe this isn't a concern at all, and next offseason he just signs that extension. But it is really interesting to think about one of the best players really of all time, potentially going somewhere else in kind of the prime of his career. He'd be 30 at that point, so maybe it's towards the end of his prime, but he's still going to be a top 2-3 player in the entire league. I appreciate y'all watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos, and comment down below, do you think Giannis stays? Do you think he leaves? And what do you think about the Bucks this upcoming season? I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.